It's good. All right. We wanted to kind of kick off the season with a bit of information from you all that brings input about things that we're doing in the organization as a whole, as well as some upcoming things that you can be expecting. But what I'd like to first do is go through some introductions. Have you all met each other previously? No. Perfect. So that's where we'll start. And why don't we start up here up front? And if you can tell me your first name, last name, and then your daughter's name, and we'll start from there.
I'm Nikki Rochelle, Lauren's mom.
I'm Sarah Silverhorn, Lady's mom.
I'm Blair Dawson, Brooke's mom.
Raj Prasad, Alan's mom.
Bill Beverly, is there.
I have to say, hold on one second, since this happened in the previous meeting, do you realize you said I'm Allie's mom?
Yeah, did I say mom?
I had to call it out because you're not the first
Mom,
time.
yeah,
The only reason I'm tuned into it, didn't I say this in the last meeting? The only reason I'm tuned into it is because it happened in a meeting before.
That's
There was
so
one
funny.
dad, and the whole room went around with moms. And I warned the dad in the room before, because there was only one dad, and I warned him ahead of time, and so I didn't warn you. I apologize.
Tricks are playing here.
That was awesome.
That's
Thank
so
you for
funny.
being,
It's
for
been a
being
long
a good
day.
sport.
Yeah, it has.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Oh, no, Bill Beverly, Kennedy's there.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'm John Flanagan, I'm Bridget's dad.
I'm Debbie Savarino, and I'm Carly's mom.
I'm Donna. I'm Lindsay's mom. I'm Rachel, Heather's mom.
Rodney Stowe, Heather's dad.
Rick Jordan, Lindsay's dad.
Excellent. And so I'm not sure how much of an introduction you all have gotten to Coach Jeff previously. So do you want to take a minute and introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Coach Jeff. This is my 9th year here at NC Elite. I coach at Middle Creek High School. I'm going into my 4th season there. I played for the Marine Corps for 3 separate years, and I've been coaching since 2004, I believe. I've coached college, Division II, Division III, community college, Division I community college, and just looking forward to a great season.
Jeff also has done a lot of the skills training and skills clinics in the past with NC Elite, and you'll see him also there as well as we kind of get things rolling out to all of the teams in the next couple of weeks. He's also run a few of our programs. Do you want to come in? I think your daughter's looking for you.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's my cue.
I'm so sorry,
She has a younger daughter who's on another team, and they have a pizza party tonight. So she heard the meeting before this. Just wanted to say a few introductions. Sorry to interrupt. I was talking about you. So you'll see Jeff out on the courts a lot for skills training. He's also run a few of our programs here before. So even postseason, Jeff probably will not be a stranger to you. So. Anything else you want to say about you? You'll have other times to say things, but.
I have an amazing dog, year and 2-month dog, and it's pretty awesome.
Who used to get to come to the gym?
Yeah, she was here in the gym for the first probably 3 weeks I had her. Pretty much every practice, parents would volunteer to take care of her, but yeah, she's too big now. Big German Shepherd.
Awesome.
I'll watch it.
I think I just heard a lot of parents. The problem is you're going to be traveling when he's traveling, so that might not be too productive.
You have an assistant coach too, right?
Yeah, she's with the kids now, Martine. I coached her when she was playing here on 18 Black, probably 6 years ago, I believe it was. Yeah. So it's fun working with somebody together as a coach that's played here in the past and played for me in the past, and see what she's learned. Some of the stuff that she says, I taught her. So it's always a fun situation.
And you'll also have the opportunity to see Martine in some of our middle blocker training again as we get the skills clinics really rolling. So they'll be in the courts a lot.
Didn't get your name?
We're going to that now. Yeah. My name is Sandy. I am founder and president of NC Elite Volleyball Club. And I'm going to take you through some introductions that will kind of go along with the people who are not here, who I also want to make sure that you know, because you'll see them in and around the players. And I want to make sure that you know that they have a role and what they're here for. So we've made a lot of changes to NC Elite this year from a leadership perspective. And one of the things that we've done is we've introduced a group of master coaches. And master coaches are coaches with over 20 years of experience in coaching volleyball and in athletics administration, and have all played at an elite level. And the purpose behind instituting the Master Coaches Program is twofold. Number one, it's first and foremost to support our coaches. We have 1 to 2 coaches to every 10 players, and that doesn't sound like a difficult ratio to work with, but in fact, when you get into the middle of the season and there's a lot going on, the coaches can actually get spread pretty thin. And our master coaches are really here to support those coaches, give them the opportunity to have some assistance in places that they may want to pull them into. And then the second thing is that the master coaches are developing all of the programming that's being put out on the courts. Okay? They're doing it along with the coaches, so everything that we're developing from a programming perspective is fitting into the same frameworks that we're also developing for the on-court training within the teams. Okay? Our master coach roster includes myself, and then Gary DeJames. He's also a founder and executive director in the organization. And full disclosure, he's also my husband. John Dillinger is also one of our master coaches. John Dillinger's been working with the organization again since it was founded. He's been a coach and is coaching again this year. His daughter has played in the organization, so he's also been a parent. And John's volleyball experience goes back to his days at U.S. Military Academy at West Point, where he played under Coach Bob Bertucci, who is still regarded as one of the most foremost thinkers in both collegiate and international volleyball. And he also trained under Bob Bertucci and from a coach perspective as well. Kevin Campbell is also one of our members of the Master Coaches team, and she's the associate head coach at NC State University. Kevin and I have known each other for over 25 years. We both lived in Charlotte together a long time ago, and there we founded Charlotte Elite. Charlotte Elite, we handed off to another organization when I moved to Raleigh, and she moved actually, I think at that time, she moved up to Happy Valley and coached at Penn State. And then Kevin went out and was a coach in North Florida, and then went out to Colorado and was a coach, and then eventually landed in Raleigh, coaching for NC State University, and so we are taking full advantage of being able to work together again with the younger players. And then the last person on our master coaches team is Ramel Lightborn, and most of you, well, if not all of you, have seen him in the gym or have your daughters have trained with him. And Ramel is not only part of our master coaches team, but he is also the director of player and coach development, and that's why you see him in the gym so much, because he's not just a master coach, he's not just a coach coaching a team, which he's also doing, but he's also the coach on the court helping the coaches develop their players. Okay? I won't go through all the bios of everybody up here. I will tell you though that there are pretty extensive bios of everybody online. So you can look at the leadership team and see all the bios there, and then a bit of a different bio for those of us who are also on the master coaches roster. Okay? Other members of our leadership team this year, Joe McLean, he's our head of informatics. Christine Bailey, she's the director of finance and business operations. Joe is not only our head of informatics, but he's also a coach and a parent in the organization. Joe is leading our migration from our Oasis system into Sports Engine, and Sports Engine is becoming our central component of administration across the entire club. So we used to have a full-time administrator who just did administration, and that position has been completely eliminated in the organization. It does not exist. Instead, we are handling all of our administration within Sports Engine. Any of you who have played for our club before know that in the past you had to sign all this paperwork and hand it in and take pictures of it and text it and all this kind of stuff, right? Like that was like your first kind of step into the organization. You did do all that paperwork this year. You just did it in Sports Engine online with digital signatures. So these are some of that's just an example of some of the ways that we're migrating to electronic administration versus an actual person here doing administration. You all are now in charge of your own administration. So in the past, you actually had to contact a person at NC Elite and say, my address has changed, or my phone number has changed, or can you tell me this information? Now you all have the ability to do that yourself within Sports Engine. The Sports Engine also becomes the administrative tool for the coaches. So the coaches are in Sports Engine managing themselves, and they'll also manage the team through Sports Engine. One of the goals of adopting Sports Engine and the organization as the way it's developed right now with Christine and Joe in place, as well as our master coaches, is that we are purposefully working to take the administrative responsibilities off the coaches in every possible way we can, right? And so if you think about how the organization is now aligned, we have Joe, who's heading informatics. He's responsible for getting all the data into Sports Engine, your registration data, making sure your personal data is aligned properly. He's going to be migrating all of our data from Oasis, our database from Oasis, whether it was your former payments or our contact databases, whatever. Then he's going to be migrating the website off of Oasis and into Sports Engine. So he's taking all of that data and building it into this administrative tool. On the backside, we have Christine Bailey, our Director of Finance and Business Operations, who then takes that data and manages your accounts for you. She manages the business finances. She manages our cash flow. She's managing your travel. Because travel comes expense, right? So all of the work of Sports Engine is handling kind of the go-between the front end of the data that comes in and the back end of the data that goes out, right? So our coaches, we're asking our coaches to actually refer you to the person who can best answer your question. So if you have a question about your account, right? Jeff could go between and try to find that information for you and figure it out, but the best thing for him to do is hand it to a specialist who's Christine, who's going to be able to actually answer your question, not just your first level question, but your second and third and fourth level question, and make sure you get the right information. If you have a question about Sports Engine or registration in Sports Engine, and how to get guardians assigned, and how to get the players in, again, he could be a go-between, right? He's transferring that information, but now we're using 3 people to do what 2 people could do in direct communication. So Jeff's being asked to route you directly to Joe McLean so that you can start your conversation immediately with the specialist that we have in that specific question. Yes?
So a little constructive criticism. With this Sports Engine, lucky enough to have some great grandparents that wanted to contribute to paying part of their tuition. But they want to just contribute whether it's $500 or $1,000, which you only have set payments, you can only make in the system. So I did contact you, I was like, hey, Grandpa wants to put this in, and he was just like, sorry, no. So there's no option to like put in
if you
a
want
certain
to set
amount.
up a certain amount on an invoice, he can absolutely do that. If I recall, because Joe talked to me about that one, the question was about accepting a personal check. And as a business practice, we're not accepting personal checks.
Yeah, but then change to a different amount on there, yeah.
What was that?
But then I asked him if you could just do a different amount, the amount the grandparent wanted to contribute to.
Yes, and I actually saw that in your account, right? So you had a larger payment up front and then that trailing payment back behind. So your account is actually set up to accommodate that. So maybe if you reach back out to Joe, and I can
I'll
help
take a look
translate
at
that
it.
question.
Yeah, I don't think it was relatively clear.
And the only reason I have it in my mind is that we were going through and doing analysis of how many people went in through the standard process that we set up versus how many people were one-offs for special accommodations for things like that. And I just remember seeing yours there. That's the only reason. That's the only reason I know that. But you might want to reach out to Joe about that.
Okay.
And I will say, I think that the comment that you put forward is absolutely correct. We are, to me, Sports Engine is a little bit rigid in terms of managing people's accounts who want to have some fluidity. Like some people want to pay early, right? Some people get paid bi-monthly as opposed to on the 15th and the 30th. And right now we're having to manage every single one of those as a one-off. But we've also been told by Sports Engine we're one of their largest accounts and they really would like to accommodate what we're doing. We just have to give it to them and then they'll start working.
Cool.
So your comment is absolutely 100% felt by me. It has to be managing the team who's managing the one-offs. Because every time he does a one-off, she has to account for that in our accounting books, which is the challenge. So you are 100% correct, 100% heard. Okay? All right. So one thing that I do want to go to then is to show you kind of how the organization is designed so that when you are directed to one place or another, it has a rhyme or reason for you. You don't think it's just somebody putting you off or not wanting to answer your question to help you. Okay? So your primary point of interface in the organization is the NC coaching staff, whether it's Jeff or Martine or one of the coaches in the skills clinics. That NC Elite coaching staff, remember, we're trying to take the administrative burden off of them, right? We want them focusing on your players. We want them taking their time to actually plan your practices, right? We want them to have adequate time, let's put it that way, because they've always planned practices, but we want them to have more time to plan practice, plan the training, understand the player development, work through lineups, things like that, as opposed to answering administrative questions. And so we want them, when you ask a question, to identify who in the organization is best suited to answer that question. That's going to be a learning process for them because the organization is just developing, right? And so as you get information, they're getting the same information. And that's because as we're rolling out new information in new ways, for us to kind of preload 60 coaches prior to rolling it out to you would be really challenging and you'd never get the information on it. So as we're rolling out this information to you, they're getting that same information real time, right? So there's a little bit of a learning curve that's going to happen here. But as that question comes into them, if it's not regarding coaching or how you all are getting to a specific tournament or what time you need to be there for a match or something like that, they're going to roll you either to Joe or Christine primarily to help you access the answers to those questions, okay? In some cases, it may roll up to me if it's something that, again, as we manage the organization, either hasn't been addressed, hasn't been assigned to somebody's responsibility, or maybe we don't have a policy around and we need to take on as a conversation and figure out how we're going to manage it going forward, okay? So don't take it as though they're putting you off. Take it as though they're trying to get you the most direct access to the person who can best answer your question. One thing that I do want to mention to you is that Joe is not just our head of informatics, but he's also a coach and he's also a parent. We've seen him in the gym a lot. I am not just the president, I am also coaching a team and I'm also a master coach. John Dillinger, who's one of our master coaches, is also coaching a team. You'll see Gary in the gym a lot, running skills clinics and coaching also on the same team that I'm coaching. And the reason I tell you that is because when we're in the gym, a lot of times we have a real-time, immediate responsibility where we are accountable to either a team or a training session. And so if you ask us a question, you're more than welcome to ask us a question. If you do ask us a question, please make sure it's not when we're active on court. And please understand if you have to say, I can't really have that conversation right now because I'm getting ready to step into skills training. It's not trying to put you off. It's just making sure we deliver to the other players what we've committed to those players. And the most likely response you'll get if we're not able to take that question in real time is if you can send me an email, I'll be sure to see that and then respond back to you outside of court time. Okay? So you're more than welcome to step up and engage with us. Just don't feel put off when we say that we have to do something else. Okay? Questions on that? All right, so I want to take you through a little bit of the NC League Volleyball Club overall philosophy and coaching philosophy. And I have had the opportunity now to work with Jeff for several months, right? So we've been engaging for about 6 or 8 months, what have you. And I am 100% confident that Jeff's personal coaching philosophy aligns with the NC Elite core values. And that's really what we look for in our coaches. We want our coaches to be who they are. Because if a coach can be who they are and train your child, you're getting the best out of that program. And then we have an assistant coach here with Jeff, Martine. She needs to be who she is, and you'll find they're vastly different people in a really great kind of synergizing way, right? But you're going to get the best out of Martine if she is who she is, right? And then all of the other coaches that you're going to have an opportunity to engage with via skills training or as the teams kind of cross-train with each other, we want them to be who they are because different players hear different things and they're presented in different ways. But with that said, we do want the coaches to align with the focus that we're putting out on the courts, and we want to make sure first and foremost that they're aligned with the NCAA core values. Any of you who have been in and around the club for the past 6 months, you've probably seen these everywhere. These all over our website. At tryouts, they were on big poster boards sitting in the gym. As we go through this realignment inside of the organization and some change in overall strategy about how we engage in the national landscape of volleyball, it is extremely important that we focus on those core values. Because if we're always making decisions in alignment with these core values and our mission and vision, then the likelihood of success of that strategy is much higher. And so you're going to see a really heavy focus on these core values. Your daughters have already been taken through the core values on their first day, on club day, right? And we focus on 2 core values with them. They are confidence and respect and integrity. And on the respect side, we talked about respecting every coach in the gym, respecting every player in the gym, respecting every player who's on their competition, respecting their parents, right? How many of you maybe got your thank you note from your players after club day, if they were here for club day, okay? That thank you note was part of the respect discussion. Sorry. Sorry if you didn't, but it could be that they weren't here, and we did know a couple of them were left in the party room after we had cupcakes. So it's just, that was the first step in them showing respect to you, helping you see that they understand the commitment that you're making and allowing them to be here. Okay? And we'll keep working through all of these as the season goes on. One that I do want to call your attention to that I personally find really important is perseverance. And this is perseverance through successes and failures. And sometimes people look at me like I have 2 heads that the kids need to learn how to persevere through success. But when your child is successful, what do? Do you let them go have a cake in their room and never have to do anything again? Or do you want them to do more? You want more, right? What's that next step? What's more? Well, in this setting, more is something they've never done before. More is unknown to them. And for children, that's scary. That's probably the scariest thing for them to approach, is something they've never done or something they know nothing about. And not only are we asking them to willfully go in and do that, but we're asking them to do it in front of an entire room of their peers. Okay? So helping them understand that they have to persevere through success and be able to move forward to gain more or to achieve more is something that we're going to need your help and support in doing as well, because it's really challenging for kids this age. When they fail at something, they know they have to try it again, but they know exactly what it is that they have to try again. They've been told 50 times by their coach how they have to try it again and what they have to do different. But that more is so unknown that it's often very rare. Okay? All right. That leads us then to the expectations of coaches, players, and parents that we have as an organization. And a lot of these have come that we've pulled in from our coaches. What are the expectations that you feel we should be putting forward? The first expectation of our coaches, and also you're going to see it's the first expectation of our parents and players as well, is that coaches will work to demonstrate NCAA core values. If we can all three groups align and decide to work and live by those NCAA core values, then we will have a smooth season, right? Because you can have challenges, you can have barriers, you can have hurdles, but if we're still working to live by the NCAA core values, nothing is unsolvable, and the distance between any two people is probably relatively small, okay? One thing that I want to point out to you on this list, I'm not going to read it all to you, this is all going to be posted online, but one thing I want to point out to you is that coaches will push everyone and often. It is the coach's job. That is why they are here. They are here to push the players. Do you agree?
Absolutely.
Okay. So them pushing the players is also very similar to that perseverance thing, right? Through successes and failures. Because they're going to push them to do more every single day. Okay? It's their job. So when your child comes home and they're frustrated or they're saying, my coach keeps saying I'm not good, my coach keeps saying I'm not good, that's not what the coach is saying. The coach is saying, you can do more. The coach is saying, I am pushing you because I see more potential in you as you start to learn these skills. Players at this age tend to take some of that as a negative and as a criticism. That's not the goal of the coach. The goal of the coach is to be pushing and challenging to do things different and better. We need your help in helping them understand that. All right. The next one is expectations of players, and I promise that number one is players will work to demonstrate and live by the NCAA core values. Number two is actually critical for players, especially as they get older, which your players are getting older, which is probably hard to think about. Players are in charge of their volleyball, their goals, their playing time, fitness, eating habits, etc. You can't create them for them. You might be able to put a list together of goals, but unless they're truly the player's goals, that player is not going to fully engage in achieving those goals. They need to be in charge of their own goals and determining what they are. That's the same is true for, say, fitness and eating. I can take 10 players and put them out on this field and run them through a fitness session, a 1-hour fitness session, right? They can choose to get nothing out of that. They can go through all of the training. They can go through every motion we ask them to go through. But until they decide to engage and push themselves to the point where they're gaining fitness, we can't do anything. That has to be their choice. You can't even make them choose that. So we really need to teach the players that these decisions are theirs to make. They have to be the ones owning their goals. They have to be the ones owning their fitness. You could fix the healthiest dinner every day of the week, but you can't choose whether or not they go to school and put that money in the vending machine and buy a candy bar, right? So this is something that we're going to be working with the players to understand how critical it is as they continue through their playing experience. Anything to add specifically from your perspective, Jeff, on your expectations of players?
In terms of
Anything. Some coaches just have different.
just try hard. You're like, if you swing in a ball and miss it and it goes down, I'm not going to congratulate you for that. I'm going to tell you that you did it wrong. You got a point, so it wasn't a bad thing, but we need to do this to get it to the next point, get to the next level. And a lot of the times coming from non-national teams up to national teams, that's where there's a little bit of a missing link there. So I'm going to push the kids as hard as I can. Martine's going to push the kids as hard as she can to get them better, not just to be successful in making a mistake. We want them to do what they're trying to do correctly, not just okay.
So what I'm hearing you say is that for you, it's not just the outcome that's important, it's also the process and how they got to that outcome that's critical, right? Even more critical in some cases, because the point, you can take or leave a point, but if they're doing the right things at the right time, that's what you want to see.
Yes.
And that is something that's really hard for players to understand, right? Because sometimes getting that easy point is more rewarding in a match, but it is important that they understand that the older they get, the criticality of how they got that point is more important than the actual. Okay? All right, and finally, expectations of parents. Again, the first one, parents will work to demonstrate and live by the NCAA core values. There are a few things that I want to point out on this list. A lot of this is kind of self-explanatory, but parents are expected to cheer, encourage, and support all of the athletes. That includes the athletes on your team. That includes the athletes in your gym. That includes the athletes in your organization. That includes the athletes on the teams competing against your athlete. Okay? Don't be afraid if they make a great play and score a point on us. Be like, that was fantastic, right? Because ultimately, it's about every single person in the gym getting better. The better that team gets in a match, the better they're going to make your team when they're trying to beat them. Okay? The next one is parents will be respectful of all officials and coaches always. And I think that it goes without saying that you're respectful of the coaches. Let's talk about officials for a second, because that seems to be sometimes a little bit of a catching point. How many of you have ever kept official volleyball score? Okay, so we have a few people who can validate here. From the time the ball lands on the floor and the referee calls a point, and that ball is rolled back to the server and the server is whistled to serve, there are about 15 things that have to happen that a single scorekeeper is checking, right? They're circling points, they're putting tick marks here, they're checking to make sure it's the right serve, they're looking at whether or not there's a libero checking in, they're looking at the referee to see if the referee's trying to communicate anything down to the score table, they're watching the second referee to see if there's going to be a substitution, or maybe that there's going to be a timeout and they're keeping an eye on the coaches to help see that, right? There's a list of things they have to do. If there's a challenge with a score, if a score is wrong, it's not because they misinterpreted the last point, right? If you misinterpret the last point, you can easily replay that, fix the score, you're done, piece of cake. If there's a problem with the score, it's usually because that occurred 2 or 3 points earlier. So now you get into a multiplier. You're not just checking the 15 things for the last point, but you can multiply that by 3 for the 15 things of the other 2 points that you missed as well. And now you're checking 45 things in front of your peers. The game has slowed down, and all of a sudden parents in the stands start yelling, score, score, score. That is not a beneficial scenario for anyone to be in. It's only going to slow down the process and make it more challenging for the players. They are doing the best they can do. They are not professionals in scorekeeping, and we're not raising them to be professionals in scorekeeping. So please, let's not be that organization that puts pressure on the scorekeepers, okay? I invite you also to watch an NCAA match at some point. Sweet 16 starts tomorrow, okay? These line judges, okay? Everybody thinks line judging is so easy. Line judging is not easy. If you're standing here, and the line is right here that you're calling, you can't always tell if that ball actually bounced inside the line, on the line, or just outside the line. Watch the scorekeepers who do this professionally. They are professionally trained. They are not standing still, okay? They are actually down. They're like this, and they're watching that line. NCAA has instant replay, because even those officials don't get it right all the time. So don't expect a 15-year-old, 14-year-old kid who's been standing for 8 hours and playing volleyball all day to be so laser focused that they get it right every time, okay? Give them the benefit of the doubt. Assume that they're doing the best they can do, even when it's your court where you think they're making a mistake. Everybody good with that? Okay. Just a forewarning, we do have a couple of coaches in the gym whose parents are referees that run at not only regional events, but national qualifiers. So we always hear back from our parents aren't being the best sports about the scorekeepers and the line judges. So if you do it, we'll hear back about it. All right. The last thing, parents will follow a 48-hour rule for addressing coaches regarding playing time, practices, anything that comes up, okay? What does this mean? This means that if you're at a tournament, something happens at a tournament that makes you really unhappy, and you're sitting on the sidelines for 8 hours that day, and everything keeps coming back to that one thing that made you unhappy, and you are just kind of seething, and you just want to get to Jeff and talk to him and give him a piece of your mind, right? You've been sitting there waiting for 8 hours and thinking through every possible case and scenario and getting more and more frustrated. He's completely clueless sitting on the bench that there is even an issue to be talked about, right? You approach him at the end of that tournament, it is a completely unproductive scenario. There is nothing productive that will come from that discussion. What we're going to ask you to do instead is send them a quick email. Say, hey, want to have a discussion? This is what it's about. 2 sentences, don't write a book. I'll encourage them never to read a book of emotions in an email, okay? 2 sentences, this is what it's about. Give him 48 hours. Give him time to, number one, decompress from a tournament. Because I don't know if any of you have coached for 8 hours or coached for 6 hours over the course of 3 days, but you need a minute to decompress, right? So give him time to decompress. Let him think about what you're talking about. Let him think about it from different perspectives. Then schedule a time after 48 hours for the 2 of you to sit down and have a discussion. Okay? Not a difficult ask, I don't think. It might be challenging in the moment, but not a difficult ask. One thing that I do want to say is that the organization absolutely supports our coaches if they are approached in a tournament in a way that is unproductive about anything, or even in this gym during or after practice that is unproductive. We support them in saying, this is not a conversation that we can have now, and walking away from here. It will seem completely rude to you in the moment, but it's following that 48-hour rule. And we absolutely support and encourage them to do that if the situation requires it. Okay? Any questions on that? Good? All right. Playing time and training cycles. Playing time we've gone over previously in parent meetings before tryouts. At NC Elite, our goal is to win. Your players are playing on a national level team. They had to go through a very rigorous tryout process in order to make that team. We had multiple teams of players who did not make the team, and we had multiple players, many players who did not make the team in the organization. So your players are playing to win. With that said, the players were selected for your team because we felt that they were capable of contributing to that goal of winning. Okay? Now, while they are today capable of contributing to that goal of winning, it is the responsibility of the coaches and the players together to continue their development so that they continue to be capable of contributing to that goal of winning. A player who makes a team today and does not put the work in to continue their development, we'll see that the rest of the team will develop without them. Okay? It's the way it should happen, right? So it's the responsibility of the player along with the coach to make sure that they're putting the work and the effort and the time in to continue their development so that they can continue to contribute to that goal. Okay? Any questions on that? Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
This is going to be honestly, I'm embarrassed, but is there another thing happening somewhere else between 8 and 8:30?
Are you here for 15 White?
Yes.
That's happening right after this one. You're welcome to sit there and stay if you'd like.
The time he gave was 8 o'clock.
We're running behind.
Okay, just want to make sure I'm not in the wrong place.
Yeah, we couldn't find the parents for the
Not so
first meeting.
stupid, like.
No, not stupid. We couldn't find the parents for the first meeting, and so we got started on that one. 15
Okay,
minutes late.
sorry.
But you're free to sit. Okay. All right, moving on to our training cycles. This year we're approaching our training cycles a little bit differently. Last year we did position-specific training on Sundays. We got a lot of feedback from parents and coaches and what have you, and they didn't feel that they were as beneficial as they could have been. So this year we're changing our training cycles a little bit. Last year we also did position-specific training, and it was kind of flat throughout the season, right? So what we saw is the players got better and then they plateaued it. So this year what we've done is in the first week and a half to 2 weeks of training, all the master coaches found themselves in the gym evaluating players and looking at how we need to start the training in order to get the most benefit of the training that we're doing. And what we decided was that we needed at least a front 4 to 6 week cycle to just focus on skills training. And this might extend, just depends on what we see in the gym, right? We saw a pretty wide array of skill levels and technique that was being exhibited by the players. And so in the first 4 to 6 weeks, we're really focusing on refining that technique and getting the overall skill. The coaches were given a 6-week framework from which to work from. Again, we don't want to tell the coaches what to run on their courts. That needs to be the decision of the coaches to what best suits the team. But we give them a framework of what we want them to do to be working on in the first 4 to 6 weeks, so that all the courts are working on similar things. Their focus in the first 4 to 6 weeks is ball control, serving, and managing their lineups, understanding how their teams are going to work, right? And so what we did is we built the skills training to fit into that. So we have a lot of setter training, we have a lot of middle blocker training, we have a lot of outside hitter training. We have a little bit less ball control because you're working on ball control so much in practice, right? After we see the alignment of those skills lift, then we'll move into our second cycle, which is building base fitness into the skills. And so this is our HIT training, high intensity training. This program is built so that we're working in the entire time on building base fitness across the organization, while also doing high rep training, meaning really getting ingrained in those players, those techniques that they learn through skills training in high repetition, okay? That makes then that technique more automatic to the player as opposed to them having to think about it. We didn't want to start the HIIT training, that high repetition training, until we thought we had the right technique, because we didn't want to train the wrong technique. And then that's estimated right now to be a 4 to 6 week cycle. It's again, when we come into the gym and assess how the overall fitness level is of the organization, as to whether or not we extend that. The next cycle, cycle 3, is dynamic fitness coupled with base fitness coupled with the skills training. So now, we're going to take the skill-specific work that we're doing, continue to do that base fitness training, and add on top of that speed, agility, and jump. You guys have probably seen that online. In order for speed, agility, jump to have significant impact, you first have to have a base level of fitness from which you're working from. You also have to have that base level of fitness in order to reduce the risk of injury once you get into that more dynamic training. Okay? And then we'll run that cycle again. We're estimating right now 4 to 6 weeks, but the master coaches are constantly going to be in the gym evaluating how the players are looking. We'll also be evaluating the skills training. Once we hit cycle 3, we'll look at the timing of it and then decide where we go from there. So the first rollout of skills training for you all are a national level team. So you have national team training, which does not have an added cost. It is part of the cost of your club fees. You all have had rolled out the first cycle of skills training. Over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be monitoring and building out what that second cycle looks like. As soon as we have that built out, we're going to roll that out to you. Okay? Days are challenging. What day we hold this training on, it's really challenging because we have national level teams kind of scattered throughout various days, and some are early wave and some are late wave. For you all, you're 16 cardinal, right? So for you all, it should be good. You should see the national team training on opposite days of your practices, so it shouldn't be a problem for you. But we are also adding supplemental training on Sundays that are open to you. That just comes at an extra cost. Okay? All right. Travel. So you all are a 16-level national team, so when the teams travel, the players will, if it is a travel tournament recruitment requires a flight, NC Elite will manage the flights for the players, and then we will house them in hotels in team rooms. For travel tournaments that require car transportation, you will transport your children, but they will still stay in team rooms. Okay? One thing that I did want to call out to you is stay and play events. These are the Big South qualifier. You all are not going to the Sunshine qualifier, but the Big South qualifier. Stay and play events require contractually with the event that organizations of our size, we're sending 17 teams, that means over 200 hotel rooms. In order for us to get those hotel rooms, we have to contractually be obligated to the tournament to fill those hotel rooms, which is why we need you to go into the system if you haven't already and fill your hotel room by December 15th. You can get your room in the room block. We do have the ability for you to get multiple rooms. So if grandma and grandpa are coming and they want a room, that's fine. If you're bringing your whole family and you need 2 rooms, that's fine. We're just asking you to organize that with Christine so Christine can best accommodate you on that. Okay? So if you haven't already gone in and registered for your Big South hotel, we need you to do that as soon as possible. We do have your daughter's rooms already handled. Okay? Other events that you're going to, the ACPL in Richmond and AAUs. These are not stay and play events, and so what we will do as an organization is we will use our size and we have some purchasing power that goes along with renting 200 hotel rooms, right? So we will identify hotels that are beneficial to be staying at and block some rooms for you, but there's not a requirement contractually that you stay at those hotels. So in those cases, if you want to use points and things like that, you're free to do that. The only thing we do say is we know where we are housing the coaches, and we will roll that out where we are housing the coaches. We encourage you to stay as close as possible. If you are not staying in the same hotel or an adjacent hotel as the coaches, it really will be on you to accommodate the schedule of the team, not the team to accommodate your schedule. Okay?
How do that, when the girls stay together with the teams, how does that work for just chaperoning and things like that?
Yeah. So the coaches are managing the players in the hotels, right? And what that means for Jeff's team is that Martine is managing the players in the hotels, right? And so, but the coaches will do things like work with you all as parents. You're not eliminated from this at all. They'll work with you all as parents and say, hey, where do you want to go to dinner, and find a common place to go to dinner. In the case where we have the girls staying in the hotel, a lot of times the players, just be aware, they like to just go back to the hotel and chill, right? And that's usually where the biggest challenge comes in for the parents. The parents want to go out, they want to explore, they want to have all these activities, and the kids are like, no, Mom, I want to go back to the hotel and chill. But they're telling you that through Jeff, right? Or Martine. So they're telling you that through the coaches. And so there gets to be a little bit of a communication challenge there. I would just recommend that you understand that even if your daughter is not in alignment with what the rest of the team wants to do, she still has to be a part of the team to do that. So just be a little understanding on the dynamics there. Okay. Other questions about that? Do you want to say anything else about that?
Just that you guys providing the meals for the kids, that's different from what I've done for the last 9 years. So I'm going to be learning just as well as you guys. So the more we all communicate as a group, the easier everything's going to be for everybody.
I mean, like during tournaments, like if we want to do a shared lunch or something like that.
Right. In the past, we've done it differently, and this year you guys are providing all the meals and stuff at the tournament. So the more we communicate and as a big group, not because your kid isn't going to go, hey, I want to go to this restaurant. You don't get to bring your kid there. All the kids stay at the same place.
Yeah.
So the more we can work together, the easier it'll be.
I think that's a good point. In the past, not the whole time, but the past at least 5 years, the organization has managed all the food. So food was included in your dues. You paid for an additional, essentially a food bill. And then the coaches actually managed that, and we had chaperones who managed that as well, right? But what we have heard a little bit 2 years ago and a lot last year was that the players and parents were happy with that, right? Because some players did not like what parents were cooking, and people have food allergies and other preferences that didn't necessarily align with what was happening. And so we decided this year to move back to the parents managing the food. But that means if you're staying in team rooms or you're not traveling, sending them there with money. So it's a situation where you can still have the group meals, just everybody pitch in $5 or $10 and somebody organize the group meal, right? It might be a situation where they go back to the hotel. The girls don't want to go out to eat, so everybody puts in $15 and somebody goes out and gets like sandwiches and fruit and drinks and things like that. So it's just kind of collaborate and be flexible and work together. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question about when we talk about playing being in alignment. So at a weekend tournament, an issue, would there be an issue like if I need to get my daughter, I want to get Bridget to go to church on Saturday evening, Sunday morning? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so obviously there will be a challenge if it infers playing time or the playing cycles, right? But if you guys are off, if you're not until the 12 o'clock wave on a Sunday and you want to take her to go to church at 8 o'clock in the morning, just communicate that with Jeff. I'm sure that can be accommodated. That's not something that we want to necessarily interfere on. The only time it becomes a challenge is if its wave starts at noon and you want to take her to a church service at 10 o'clock and it's 30 minutes away and they may or may not be there for girls. Then it becomes really challenging for the coaches, right? But as long as there's kind of that clear distinction that it's in a downtime and you want to manage your time that way, I think the communication with the coaches is really what needs to happen.
I would say that, and obviously you can overrule me on this, but if it's a church situation, absolutely. Anything else is no. Church, obviously, I support that and your faith, but I want to take my kid out to dinner, or my aunt lives in town, so I want to go see my aunt. That's not something that the kids are going to separate for.
I would support that 100%. The situation you gave completely, right? Anything else, it just becomes too disparate and divergent for the entire team. Okay? Other questions?
Yeah, I don't know if there's any validity to this, but I've heard there might be doing some Uber riding between venues of the tournaments and stuff like that.
There are a couple of tournaments that we anticipate a lot of parents will not be going to. Tournaments, the Sunshine Classic is one where we only have 2 teams going, and we may not have a full complement of parents, and so rides may be short. No player will be put in a car with Uber or taxis or what have you without a coach or an adult on that
Because
team.
it's against Uber policy. that
Exactly.
Anybody under 18 to drive.
We will not have any players at any point in time in an Uber or a taxi, even a car service for that matter. I mean, I've traveled extensively all over the world for business, and I still don't feel comfortable myself, even in our car services that are sponsored by our companies when we're in other parts of the world. So, no. Good question. Even if that means, because we had this discussion with the coaches, even if that means that a coach gets in a car with players, the players travel to the tournament site, the coach gets in the car and goes back and gets players and travels to the tournament site, right? I mean, to that extent, we've had that discussion with coaches. Other questions? No? Okay. Last thing is Sports Engine. I know we put on this earlier, but I just want to make sure everybody gets set up in Sports Engine because this is how we as an organization are going to communicate to you, okay? Your Sports Engine account you can manage. You should go in and make sure you are opted in for emails, and please also opt in for texts. You have to actively opt in for text. You're not automatically opted in. And the reason I say that is that it does take spam filters a long time sometimes to train on these systems and allow them through. But if you opt in for texts, as soon as you get an email, you will get a text alert. And so if you don't see it coming in your email, it will prompt you to go look for that email because we're not communicating out irrelevant information. We are communicating out important information, okay? Second thing is, when you're on your app, go into your calendar. That's a dynamic calendar, okay? We're just rolling out the tournaments in that calendar, so there's a lot of updating and reviewing that still needs to be done. Be patient with that. But that's a dynamic calendar, so if things change or fluctuate, it will be changed in that calendar automatically. However, if you roll that calendar into a static calendar, that static calendar will not automatically be updated, so make sure you're still checking the dynamic calendar. Joe's working with Sports Engine to figure out how to get a dynamic update in your Google calendars, okay? Other questions? Yes.
So there's a question regarding the Myrtle Beach tournament that
Yeah.
you guys changed.
Erroneously, we didn't change, we just accidentally sent the information to you all. You were never scheduled for it.
Okay, so this team was never scheduled?
No.
No, okay, all right.
No. Yeah.
That's good, all right.
Thank you for bringing it up, but no, the team was not scheduled for it. We just looked at the wrong listing.
Okay, cool.
Okay. We have been working on the Big South. That was the challenge. So,
Got it.
yeah. Other questions? No? All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Hopefully this gives you a little bit of background in terms of how things are moving in the organization. We are always open to feedback, so if there's any feedback, please give it to us. That's the only way we can get better. Okay? All right. Thank you, game check. I'm sorry, I
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Hey, thanks, guys. No problem. Thank you.
No, I don't have one of those seats that you can like when you can bring with you and sit on the bleachers, and I always forget it. I just need to put it in my trunk.